All right, it's another Prem review. We're going to be focusing heavily on the title race and I guess some of the relegation stuff as well. But this will be a lot about the story of the contrasting fortunes of Arsenal and Man City. Now, obviously, just as a follow-up, we talked about how Arsenal had been the victim of some terrible refereeing decisions. A recurring theme in Prem Review has been how bad the refereeing has been in the Premier League. And look, let's just be real about it. Are there any excuses to be this bad, this inept, this ineffective, get this many decisions wrong? There were even more decisions wrong, this time around. You have got all the tools you need to succeed. You have 5 minutes to look at every incident from any angle you want, draw lines, use multiple camera angles. There's just no excuse for this volume of wrong decisions. And as I said last time out, Arsenal can definitely feel aggrieved. They had 2 points taken off them they shouldn't have had taken off them. And that could be the margin in a title race that looks like it's going to be this fine cut. And so I think they carried a little bit of that over into the resulting weeks. People have said the bottle job is on. Arsenal are going to bottle the title. And if you cast your mind back to when they played City at home, it's the first time, by the way, I've heard Highbury not be sound like an actual electric football stadium. I can't remember the last time that happened. The atmosphere was great for this game, and you really thought that Arsenal were going to be up for it. They came out of the gates. They really started strong. Then they conceded the first goal at De Bruyne. The heads didn't dip. The players rallied round. They do this all the time when things, key moments happen in a game. They get in a huddle. They talk to each other. Xhaka's in there. Odegaard's in there, telling everybody, come on, let's do it. They were able to get a goal back through Saka, who was brilliant once again in this game. But when it came down to the, last 20 minutes, I don't know what happened. Arsenal seemed to get a little bit, it wasn't contentment. It was just they just seemed to be a little bit less interested in imposing their will, maybe worried, maybe trying to think about, can we hold on to what we got? And City at the back end just were too good. I mean, De Bruyne, masterclass from him, Gundogan, Haaland, the same names you've been talking about with City all year long. And, the other key thing is obviously we know Man City are vulnerable. We know they're not the all-conquering Man City of seasons gone by. And clearly there's been some internal squad turmoil like we saw with the Cancelo incident. Something has happened internally, but Pep seems to have got the players back into the focus they need, as we go into this, deep into this second half of the season, plus obviously European commitments for them as well. It was strange. It was a strange game. Arsenal, they generally dominate the games when they produce a lot of goals, when they have a lot of possession. They're very effective. This game, that wasn't the case. They had 2/3 of the possession in the game. They managed one shot on target. Keep in mind, Saka's goal was from the penalty spot. That's not great. And it's so unlike Arsenal. I don't know if it was a mentality thing. They were licking their wounds, feeling sorry for themselves. Maybe they're getting a bit tired. We know that they're a thin squad. It's also got to be said, all of the stuff that I said about the World Cup being where it was, and if one team loses a key player, it could pervert the outcome of the Premier League. That's definitely coming true now, because I think Eddie's done a good job. I've said that. But there were chances in this game he had to put away, and he didn't. And Eddie's in that spot right now where Arsenal create so many chances, it's okay for him in the lesser games to not be as clinical. But in a game against City, where you are going to get fewer chances, theoretically, because they're a better team, then you've got to put them away when they're presented to you. And Eddie missed a couple in this game, where I thought, at the end of the day, if you bury them, we're looking at something entirely different. Also got to be said, Arsenal a little bit shaky at the back. Seemed susceptible to, again, trying to play that offside trap against City. They got caught, Haaland making those, darting runs that he's known for. But overall, I mean, City were the better team in this game. You can have no complaints about the result. And then as you move forward, through the fixture list, Saturday looms, and suddenly, City are top of the table, and Arsenal have that game in hand. But now people are talking about City being favourites. In fact, if you look at the bookies, if you were placing a bet right now, City are the favourites on paper. You know, they were at the, you know, a few days ago. And that seems crazy when you consider, you know, Arsenal should technically be the front runners still, even with that little wobble in the middle, and now a loss to City. But anyway, let's then fast forward to later in the week. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the Monday night game that week. It's Liverpool, Everton. Everton got battered by Liverpool. It's not reflective of a Liverpool resurgence. It's not reflective of Everton not being much improved under Dyche. They are much improved under Dyche, as we might get some time to talk about. But that game, Everton were just completely outmatched. I don't know if it was a tactical thing that didn't quite get executed well enough, but it's still early days for Dyche, so I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, you know, just watch Liverpool again, you know, and beat my team, Newcastle. And, I mean, we sort of gifted them the game, really. I don't think Liverpool have turned some sort of insane corner. I think they're still vulnerable, frankly, and I still think they'll miss out on the top four. But anyway, so let's get to the Saturday games as they come in. Let's just get some Chelsea talk out of the way. Chelsea become just absurd. They were playing Southampton. And what we talked about in the last Prem review with Nathan Jones, the narco man, well, he got fired. He did get fired. Those rumblings that happened in the last episode, they came to pass. He got absolute, you know, I mean, like, I can't think of a worse Premier League appointment ever. This is like, I'm really trying to think of who it would be, like, who you could even point to. This guy came in from lower division football. I think he won one game. He talked shit the entire time, and he wasn't even there for like 3 months, and then he was out the door. Just an inexplicable appointment for a club that couldn't afford to get it wrong. Now, you know, it looks like they're going to be using their caretaker for the rest of the season. And so anyway, taking on Chelsea, you would have thought Graham Potter, you know, and this has always been a Potter sort of apologist zone, you would have thought Potter would have relished this game. This would be the one you want, you know. Bottom of the league, just got a new manager, everything's in disarray, heads are going to be going. This is where the super Chelsea team that's been assembled by the new owners, you know, 600 million spent, this is where you think they're just going to pick apart a beleaguered team and tune them up for 5-0. But what I've said all this time was, Chelsea, you can sign 20 fucking wingers. Wingers do their best work when there's a striker to create space, you know, and pull defenders all over the place. Strikers do their best work when you've got dynamic wingers that can tie up defenders, beat a man, get crosses into the box. This is elementary football. This is like the most elementary stuff. You know, there has to be some sort of synergistic relationship. And as I said last time out, they're relying on Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz has a midfielder's brain. Kai Havertz is not a striker. Kai Havertz is not getting into the sort of space he needs to be to get the most from a dynamic midfield. And so it happened once again. Chelsea couldn't score. Southampton stole this game 1-0 thanks to Ward-Prowse, who was closing in on David Beckham's Premier League free kick record. It was another free kick. You can't fuck around when Ward-Prowse is out there on the pitch. Can't give away any silly free kicks. Of course, that Chelsea did right at the end of the half, I think it was. You know, the bottom line is now, Chelsea, out of the last 14 matches, and this includes Europe, which I don't talk about on this podcast, but they've only won 2. And in terms of chances they're creating and goals that they're scoring, the conversion rate is so bad. They're down there with, like, you know, the bottom 3 clubs in the league. And it's all because they just had to get a striker in the transfer window. I don't know why they didn't do it. I don't know why they thought they were just going to be able to break the rules of football and just play all midfield. And, you know, it's like, you know, you have to understand that there are some fundamentals to football that just are never going to change. There's, you know, you're always going to need someone who's adept at putting it in the back of the net. And they just absolutely don't have that. You know, they tormented Southampton in this game. 17 shots generated, but unfortunately the type of people that are taking the shots for Chelsea, you know, ended up being like, I don't know, like João Felix, you know, like Mason Mount and Fofana and Havertz. This isn't to say they're bad, right? This is not to say that they're bad players. It's just to say they do a certain other role. And, you know, if you imagine a Lukaku playing in this team still, what that would have been, I mean, forget Aubameyang, that move was completely stupid from the start, and it reeked of desperation. But like, I just don't understand it. I don't understand why one of the signings just wasn't. There's some unbelievable strikers that they're probably going to get in the future that they could have had this season. And what this has led to is this insane knock-on effect where now Potter is, I think in the Premier League era, he has the worst win rate of any Chelsea manager, It's something shocking. It's like 24% or something like that. He is the rock bottom, guys. He's rock bottom. Look, I'm sympathetic. I think Potter's a good coach. I think he's a great manager. Maybe this job's just too big for him. I still don't believe the party line that these are Potter signings, that his team, his, staff all approve of these signings. I don't believe it for a second. And I think he needed to be a little bit more boisterous, a little bit more vociferous in sort of protesting, like, look, we don't need 5 marquee midfield signings. We're leaving world-class players out of the Champions League. And by the way, that's all academic because Kante's coming back and he's got to walk into this Chelsea team. They miss him so much, Obviously, Jorginho's gone out, but, at the end of the day, they need someone in the middle of the park that's really going to be the engine for a team, and you just have to hope after a prolonged period of time, Kante can still be that guy. But anyway, Chelsea are just a mad dysfunctional team. They're just a busted team. And the fact that they didn't pick up a striker is an embarrassment. And the fact that they can lose to a Southampton, despite the money they've spent, is an even bigger embarrassment. And because of that, yeah, it is fair that Potter does feel some pressure. I get it. I understand it. Fans, Chelsea fans, they were the ones who wanted Tuchel out. Oh, what about today, dickhead? How'd you feel today? How's your fucking new manager today? And obviously, now they want Potter out. And it's like, guys, there are bigger problems at Chelsea than this. You have got to commit to getting a striker. They probably will. I mean, there's some huge names they're already being linked with coming in. Once the Champions League over, I think we'll see those overtures come to fruition. And I think they'll solve the problem. And I think Chelsea, unfortunately, will be like regularly challenging for the top 4 for the next 5 to 6 years with the squad they've got. Now, whether Potter's going to be there or not, I don't know. Bored of saying they back him entirely. But when you've had a vote of confidence this early on into your career, that does not bode well. And I got to say, I would have thought Chelsea could have just even scraped through games like this, even though they're not playing particularly well right now. The fact that they're not just makes me really alarmed, because to see all this money get spent for them to be 10th in the league is frankly, it's one of the biggest embarrassments I've seen in Premier League history. Now, while we're there, we'll pick up another one of the big talking points. Obviously, we said it'd be a lot about Arsenal and City this episode. City fucked it up. And this is why, as I'm going to get to, you Arsenal fans have got to fucking stop just being so fucking, when the wind blows, you're just out there. They literally called for Arteta's head again. So here's the thing. City, they drew with Forest 1-1. City battered Forest. This is what I mean. Forest are the most giga-boosted team in the league. This was insane. This was 75% possession for City. 23 shots. Only 6 on target from 23. Who gives a fuck? But at the end of the day, City absolutely destroyed them. This new keeper they've got, Navas, he's done a good job. But here's what's insane. The goal was scored by Chris Wood. Chris Wood from Newcastle. He's one of the worst strikers I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. And it wasn't even a good goal. It was a blistering 1-yarder. He was just on the line. He just got fed. And it was 84th minute. It's just Jesus. I don't know what it is with Forest, but they are punching so far above their weight. They're not doing it playing good football. They don't look good in these games. They're not creating chances, as we established last time out. They're one of the worst teams for that. They're one of the worst teams for goals scored. They're just, they're not even easy on the eye. There's nothing really great about Forest. And yet somehow they keep just grinding out these results to the point where they're hovering at the lower end of mid-table mediocrity. When for me, just in terms of what they do on the pitch, they should be much further down. Meanwhile, there's squads Leeds, might get to them in a moment. I think they've got much better squads and they just can't seem to get it together for some reason. Sometimes football is inexplicable. I'll say this, if Forest do stay up, this luck will run out. This is like, I know there's no such thing as luck, but if there's such a thing as luck, it's these results Forest keep getting, because there's no statistical football explanation for it. They've just had some unbelievable fortuitous moments, or just insane individual performances that just pull something out of nowhere, and then obviously those players, they're not going to sustain that. They're not that good. So it's crazy to see City drop points. I mean, Pep was spewing, as you'd imagine. He said, it's one of the best games we've played, but we dropped 2 points today. He, obviously, you could tell he was a bit upset about it. Funnily enough, what sort of emerged, what's kind of interesting, with the exception of De Bruyne, the emergence of Grealish, who's been mostly limited to coming off the bench. Grealish is starting to get more and more into the team and be more and more about it and be more and more of an instrumental player. He's never going to justify the 100 million price tag for me, by the way. 100 mil, that's so insane. You get half that for me. We're still probably talking crazy money, but that English tax will kick in. But he has been one of the better teams of late while this new transitional readjustment happens. City obviously are having to sort of plug a few gaps and change a few things, but no excuses here. I mean, a second goal just buries this game entirely, probably puts it beyond sight, and they weren't able to get it. I mean, Haaland, this is how wild it is for Forest, right? Haaland missed an absolute sitter. It was the exact same one he missed in the Community Shield against Liverpool, where it was keepers scrambling, 3 yards out from goal, ball's just there for him. All he's got to do is hit the target, and he's put it too high. He clipped the top of the bar here. So, City dropping points. And what was super funny was, meanwhile this was going on, Arsenal are playing Villa, and it goes, Watkins for Villa after 5 minutes. On the BBC feed, which I love reading, all the Arsenal fans, the bottle job's on, it's gone, we're never going to get this close to winning the title again, Arteta needs to really face the media, it's 5 fucking minutes, guys, what's happened here, and of course, lo and behold, Saka, brilliant again, one of the players of the season, in the league, he, equalises 16 minutes. Then Coutinho, Villa's best goal of the season, intricate build-up, it was like watching Arsenal, tap, cut back, clinical finish, Coutinho. I think it was his first goal of the season. So 2-1 at half-time. And again, just a deluge of Arsenal fans, fair weather fans, the worst. I've always had a problem with Arsenal fans. They don't know how good they've got it. They never knew how good they've got it. They boo their own players who really do bleed for the cause, for simply not being as good enough as Wenger era, immortals. It's so silly, the way, and their expectations are so out of whack. Keep in mind, they were 17th, I think, at one point, last season, and, Arteta was, really under pressure. They stuck with him. There was all Arteta out merch being sold. Arteta out cups, Arteta out t-shirts. There was all that being sold. All the fucking YouTubers, all of them, all the Arsenal TV. He's got to go, Robbie. They were all on that. Then they start fucking winning, top of the table. Yeah, we did the right thing. We're Arsenal. We don't get rid of our managers early. We don't cut people out early. We don't get. He's got to play. And here we are again. Immediate, things look like they're going bad at some point in the season. When you've had your top striker out, all of a sudden, nah, he's got to go. Well, anyway, Arsenal ended up winning this 4-2. Zinchenko pegs it back to 2-2. Suddenly it looks like it's going to be a 2-2 draw. That would have still been enough for the Arsenal fans to be chopsing on. But then they got, there was an own goal super late from Martinez. Martinelli got something in there crazy. It was 10 minutes at a time. So he got something mega late. And that was that. And Arsenal won. And everything was good. And then everything was yeah. And City have dropped points as well. So now suddenly Arsenal are 2 points clear with a game in hand. Arteta's a genius. They should build a statue to Arteta. Did we just win the league? ? Absolute nonsense from a fan base that has a propensity for nonsense. The bottom line is, this now we know. I said I thought the squad was too thin to actually get down when we get into the later parts of the season and all the injuries are mounting up and all suspensions are mounting up and people are tired and you've got, commitments in midweek and they're piling up and all this other stuff. It's a marathon. It really is a marathon. It's endurance. And generally, the teams that win the league are the ones that have not just a great squad, not just a great team, but real strength and depth and a manager that understands when to rotate and when not to rotate. You're going to have to take some risks sometime. You want to win a Premier League? You have to take risks. You have to take risks. You have to rest players at times. It's counterintuitive to do so. So this one for me was like, listen, y'all got to calm down, you Arsenal fans, and just like really trust the process. I said Arteta should have gone by Premier League standards, but he didn't. And this is the most exciting, good footballing Arsenal team you have had since Arsene Wenger, with a squad that are all young, built for the future. And I want to say as well, people mocked the signing of Jorginho. He had a great game here. He had a fucking fantastic game. Everybody, pulled in that second half. It was hard. And when you keep in mind as well, they've added little pieces around, Jorginho coming in, Trossard coming in. They've even addressed some of that strength and depth issue. The Nketiah Jesus problem, that's something. Like, Nketiah was he missed some more goals in this game too. Jesus is on the mend. He's coming back. You're going to have him right at the critical point of the season. And that could be a game changer for this team. They've hung in there. Not just hung in there. They've actually, kept that lead at the top. All you got to do is win this game in hand. And suddenly, it's a very different complexion to it was just 4 days back. Then, I suppose I may as well continue my love affair with Gravel Voice. Of course, Everton were at home against Leeds in a bottom of the table clash, and Leeds, looking to bounce back, having replaced their manager, put in a decent performance against United. There's some positives there that you think they're going to be able to progress through. But, Sean Dyche was able to grind out another 1-0 victory with his Brexit ball. And as I said, regulars are going to notice this. If you do watch Everton, you watch Everton highlights, just how much more disciplined they are, how better they are at sort of squeezing the pitch to make it feel small so they can play their game and force teams to have to try and play long, intelligent, expansive passing games that they might not be comfortable with. In the Liverpool derby when they lost 2-0, obviously Liverpool were able to do that even with the state of Liverpool they're in. Everton barely looked in that game until something like the last 15 minutes. It was very much men against boys. It could have been worse. But that's irrelevant. Beating Liverpool, that's a long way off. It's a long way off, when the Merseyside derby becomes competitive again. What Dyche has to do is win these games. These are the games which are like gold dust. 6-pointers at this stage of the season, and it pulled them out of the bottom three. But the nature of the victory was just, again, it was just classic. It was a tactical masterclass. Everton actually were able to generate more shots than Leeds. They had more shots on target. I don't think Leeds managed a single shot on target. They were just so dominant, Everton, in terms of, closing the ball down, winning the ball. It was so wild as well because, I've talked a lot about how pay attention to Onana and Cody being a big player. Old man Coleman fucking had a hell of a game here. Yeah, like one of the best games that he certainly had in a terrible season. But they were just really, really solid defensively. They soaked up the pressure. They were able to break when they wanted to go forward. And in the end, they got a goal, which was a bit of a nightmare goal, honestly, from the keeper's perspective. He's come too far off his line, thinking it's a cross. It probably was meant as a cross. It's been scuffed. It's gone in the net. It's one of them, but it's super embarrassing for the keeper to not play things, as they are. There was no one in the box anyway. But, Iwobi still doing his work, it was, yeah. I mean, like, the one thing I'll say about Everton is, like, we can all agree now the Maupay signing, again, was just, like, fucking absolute desperation, nightmare. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking. I think he's got 1 goal in something like 30 appearances now for Everton. This is when they wanted, a striker. They were desperate for goals. Another terrible piece of business at Everton, but, that's, no stranger to that down there. And I think what will end up happening is now Everton are going to sort of just, in the end, they're going to comfortably stay up. It's not going to come down to the last day for Everton. They're going to be safe. Probably 3, games or something like that before the end of the season. And then Dyche can really start focusing on the rebuild job ahead of him. If he can get the board to still be willing to spend the type of money that they've spent, but on signings that come in with Dyche's vision for the club, I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be back to mid-table in a season, 2 seasons. But obviously as well, the Dominic Calvert-Lewin situation is interesting. Dyche said that he wanted to meet with the player to see what he was doing in his lifestyle that was causing him to be out all the time. So in other words, this is Dyche essentially saying, like, I want to closely work with you before I decide if I cut you loose or not. Because I think he's been something of like, what, you know, we talk about wasted talent. Been one of the, you know, sort of worst wasted talents in recent years, you know, from an English player. And I question his effort. You know me, I never like it when, if a player's injured all the time, but they're doing like photo shoots and interviews and stuff. Yeah, not for me. Not for me. I think optically that looks terrible. And so anyway, yeah, Everton off to a good start. For Leeds, I don't know, man. Like I'm at a loss. I can't explain how this team is as bad as it is. It's so crazy to me. You know, Adams was in there. I thought he had a solid game. Gnonto looking like, you know, what a find. You know, Somerville, Aronson, like Bamford obviously had made some comments about Jesse Marsh. Now they're playing a more kind of traditional, you know, footballing lineup. It just, I don't know, like it just, I look at Leeds and I see a good squad. I see a team that really should be capable of doing more, you know, and it just hasn't happened for them. I don't know why. I'm really at a loss to put my finger on it. But losing games like this ain't great. They're now second from bottom. And I've got to say that if my predictions about Forest were wrong, then this is probably the team that you have to start thinking about who's going to replace Forest down there in the bottom three. And chances are, you know, Leeds are going to really struggle throughout the season. I mean, there's no more options now. And weird stuff. In terms of, like, hiring the manager, there's been all these stories about, like, you know, they're getting close to bringing managers in, then they're not, and, like, weird things happening. The club's got to get a handle, like, of itself, because there was other bad things that happened around them. You know, Bournemouth beating Wolves, like, they're away to Wolves, who've had such a great resurgence themselves since Lopetegui came in, and now fucking Bournemouth are picking up wins on the road, you know, something they haven't done for ages. So Bournemouth get out of the bottom three. West Ham go into the bottom three. And probably while we're there, you know, yeah, all right, I don't mind. We can probably talk a little bit about, you know, about West Ham. Obviously, their results on the Sunday games weren't great. You know, Tottenham doing that classic Tottenham thing that they do. And I'm not going to talk about Newcastle, Liverpool, by the way, because we're no longer in the top four, and I knew we wouldn't be. And we had this insane moment where Pope just completely made a fucking fool of himself, ran out of his box, tried to head of the ball, fell flat on his face, put his hands out to protect himself, handled the ball outside of the box, red card, no Pope for the League Cup final. We can't use Dubrovka. He's fucking cup tied. So we've got Karius, nightmare, the nightmare keeper, the man who fucking, you know, went to pieces in the Champions League for Liverpool, stepping up for our first chance to win a trophy since 1955. So I can't be fucked. I'm done with that. Like, there's no need to talk about anything until after we've lost the League Cup and Ten Hag gets his first piece of silverware with United. But let's talk about West Ham. Obviously, they were taking on Tottenham. Conte has still been off on sick leave, I believe. Don't think he was on the sidelines for this game. He's still recovering from his gallbladder surgery. And basically, you know, West Ham, I don't get it. I mean, you talk about good squads, like, playing bad. And I also don't get, what is it about David Moyes that has sort of made him immune to criticism? You've heard no rumblings that he's getting the sack all season. You've even heard rumblings to the contrary. Now, on two occasions, that David Moyes, you know, we're confident he can turn it round. But every time I hear him doing an interview, he's not the David Moyes of old. I don't know what's happened to him. Fire's gone out in his belly, man. He needs to just go put his feet up at this point. The team he's got should be really causing problems. Well, you know, causing problems in the mid-table. They should be beating these mid-table teams. Just hasn't worked. And at the heart of it all, obviously, you've got Rice. He's going to leave. You know, he's out at the end of the season. It could be anywhere. It probably fucking Chelsea, because they'll just buy every midfielder in the world. But, you know, could be Arsenal. There's talks about that. Could be United. Liverpool would, you know, kill to have a dynamic midfielder. I still think Rice is a bit of a fraud. I'll say it. I think he's overrated and overvalued, and they keep talking about this 150 mil price tag. Listen, I'll tell you something about great midfielders. Great midfielders take over games. You don't just have, like, his stats are okay and he's playing in a bad team. No, you elevate the whole team. Like, if you are a dynamic midfielder, everyone says, oh, but he plays more defensively, he's always looking to protect the back four. Yeah, that's part of what a defensive midfielder or an anchor player has to do. You better be able to distribute the ball as well. You better be able to pass. And Rice can. He has good stats for that. But I see him get caught out of position all the time. I see him get caught with a ball sometimes. I see him be wasteful in possession sometimes. All of the things that, like, world-class players don't do. Think about just any great midfielder from any era of football that you like. You know, one of my go-tos is, like, fucking Luka Modric. I love that player. I fucking think he's a god. Like, he's still going, by the way. And, you know, think about what he does. Think about, you know, how even in like 36, 37 years of age, think about the shift he puts in for his team. Think about how clever he is with the ball. Think about how well he distributes the ball. Think about how he holds on to it and can create space for himself or space for his teammates. Rice don't do none of that, not to the same degree, not to the degree of a player that we're talking about should become like some sort of world record transfer fee, like West Ham keep touting. Yeah, I don't buy it. I think he's another one of those overinflated players because he's an England international. I put it this way: think about what Newcastle played for Bruno, who, by the way, Bruno statistically beats Rice, I think, in almost every area. You know, and how much we paid for him. It's like, yeah, listen, you want double Bruno, you know, and people talk about Rice like he is, and he ain't. He ain't that guy. So there's a problem there. Souček's goals have dried up this season, as has Bowen's. Antonio, I saw in the news, his contract's up for renewal, and he's saying, I hope I get to stay. So he started playing all right these last few games. It's like, it's too little too late. Antonio's been lazy this season, I'll say it for real. But the whole team is fucked. It tells you everything you need to know about the West Ham team, that, as I said, when Ben Rama's not playing, I think they look absolutely static. And they've brought in Ings, and I'd be starting Ings over Antonio. They played Antonio, lone striker, against Tottenham. You know, just total lack of ambition. I'd be starting Ings. I think Antonio's played his way out of, my heart. You know, last season he was a Richard Lewis type player. This season, he's a bum. He's a bum who's decided, right, better start playing for me contract. But who knows, maybe if we get relegated, it's not as important to be here. So I also messed it up in the last Prem review. For some reason, I said Ben Foster instead of Fraser Forster. I don't know why that was in my head. I think I've been watching one of his podcasts. But yeah, you were right to call me on that. Yeah, it was Fraser Forster who's been standing in for Tottenham. And, you know, looked terrible, but honestly, didn't have a lot to do here. I mean, like, you know, stats speak for themselves. West Ham just didn't really get anything done. One shot on target all game. Ridiculous. It was good as well to see Tottenham sort of look a bit more like their old selves. I mean, West Ham made it amazingly easy for them. They got absolutely destroyed here. But, you know, Son has been coming back. Emerson Royale had a hell of a game. He just looked like a world-beater player here. That's how bad it was. You know, Kulusevski, Richarlison, Kane as a sort of front three. They were just tearing them apart, and Tottenham got to do that thing that they do where they just play directly just in front of the defenders. They just play in your half. And if you let Tottenham do that, as I've said all season, they're going to batter you. 17 shots created. They're just going to absolutely maul you. Son came on, gets his goal, hell of a goal. Just a solid Tottenham performance, and that puts them back in the top four. And Tottenham fans have been complaining and saying, look, we know our season's over, they bottled it. Maybe the worst of it's behind Tottenham now. Now, listen, it's Tottenham, so you can never really say that. But I still think, given the reality of Newcastle's squad situation, our long cup run, we've had some killer suspensions, we've dropped a bunch of points, recently. We've had some silly draws against lower league opposition like West Ham. I never really believed we were in the running for top four. And I think that's what's going to happen in the season. 5th, 6th, yes, absolutely. I think we'll be back in Europe next season. But Tottenham challenging for, the 4th spot makes more sense to me, frankly. And I think they can probably sneak in there over the course of the season, with Chelsea and Liverpool continuing to be mediocre and having problems. And their only real, contest is Newcastle, Fulham and Brighton, so. And just to round it out, because it's Prem Review, so where would we be without some love for my, fellow follically challenged god, Manchester United. They're in the title race, guys. I just want to say this right out, up front. They're 100% in the title race. Someone asked me on stream the other day, what odds do you think they've got of winning? And like I said, something off the cuff, like 25%, and someone said that's mad generous. And maybe it is, but I don't know. Like, I think now you look, Arsenal are on 54, with a game in hand. City are on 52, and Man United are on 49 with the same games played as City. City are going to slip up again. They're going to drop points again. Take that to the bank. United look like a team that aren't gonna lose. They really have transformed themselves. Rashford tore Leicester apart. I mean, like, this was 3-0 to United. Leicester just one of those teams where they're just gonna limp over the finish line this season, and they should probably fire Rodgers at the end, but whatever. I've said my piece on that. He's been on fraud watch all season for me, but whatever. But Rashford, 2 goals. Sancho, they're working him back in. This was like United of old. This was free flowing, counter attacking, working hard. Every time they want to tackle, players getting up, like trying to rile up the crowd, kissing the badge, like all of that stuff. Like, I mean, really the connection there, and Rashford's brilliant. But I'll tell you something else. De Gea, who Ten Hag doesn't like, De Gea made some insane world-class saves in this game. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, if De Gea doesn't make the saves he makes, like, United could have been 2-0 down. Maybe should have been at least 1-0 down. Like, it was ridiculous. He had a save against Harvey Barnes, which is like just one of the reflex saves of the season. Mental. I think it was an Iheanacho, like, header, big, strong hand, like, one of those ones where the ball's behind you and you have to, like, it was great. Those were some insane saves. And so De Gea, there's rumours he's going at the end of the season because Ten Hag doesn't like him and doesn't like the way he distributes or whatever. But I think that would be a mistake. I mean, I think De Gea is error-prone, but I think there's enough good about him, to where you would still say, like, he's going to make a handful of mistakes, sure. One of those handful of mistakes, maybe 2, might cost you goals in the season, and he's going to look like a tit. But he's going to fucking also, you're going to pull some clean sheets out because he just goes Super Saiyan. And that's what happened here. You know what I mean? Leicester, they're probably in a world where everything's fair and equal. They're probably thinking in their mind, we should have at least had a draw out of this. But anyway, look. So much good to talk about. The whole Weghorst hate is like really strange to me, and I wanted to talk about this on the podcast. People, even United fans have been like, saying Weghorst is like shit. I think Richard Keys or whatever said it's like playing with 10 men when Weghorst's in the team. That's absolute nonsense. What Weghorst does, imagine it like Rashford's in the left channel, and Weghorst isn't playing as like a target man striker. He's sort of playing in line with Rashford, but subdued. So his job is essentially to be a hold-up man, or occasionally even to come back and help the midfield out. Remember how essential that's been? There was no Casemiro here. It was Sabitzer and Fred. And so Weghorst was coming back, win the ball, like put some tackles in. Was this a great performance by Weghorst? No. Was this a United level performance by Weghorst? No. Like, no one's going to remember these types of games. But let me tell you what it does. Think about it like this. So if Weghorst is Rashford's striking partner and he comes deep and wins the ball and he holds it up and lays it off, well, now suddenly you've got Rashford, who is basically playing as good as like vintage Ronaldo right now. It's mental. Like, it's absolutely insane. His goals, he's beating people. He's just a handful. He's just a nightmare for defenders to deal with. You've got Garnacho. Listen, the one thing this kid has got is pace, and another thing he's got, intent. And that can be good enough sometimes in a team that's playing well. On the other side, you got Bruno Fernandes, right? Like, he's obviously, Fernandes, we all know the memes, but he's wicked distributor of the ball, great passer, great eye for the attack. But what Weghorst is enabling is he is creating the space. On set pieces, he's in the box, mixing it up. You can't leave him alone. He's too big and, too ungainly for that. He's like some sort of Peter Crouch-type figure. You're going to have to put a defender or 2 defenders on him. You have to watch him on the set pieces. It's freeing up space. When they're in open play, Weghorst's coming deep, pulling a man out, and then suddenly you can exploit that with the pace or with the pass from Fernandes or just with Rashford being direct. Weghorst is doing unsung hero work when he plays. It's the type of work, if you've ever played the game, if you ever played up front, you ever been a target man, you ever been in an unglamorous role like an anchor man in midfield, you know exactly what Weghorst is doing and why it's working. And so the idea, by the way, that Martial should be back in the team when he's so fucking lazy, no, you would struggle in the games you played him. This system is perfect. It's Ten Hag finally achieving the team's final form in terms of what we do tactically. He has nursed Sancho through a terrible run of form. Now when Sancho comes on, he is an impact sub. Soon, in my opinion, be a genuine consideration to start in the games. They're fighting on all these fronts. They've got a League Cup coming. They got Europe coming with Barcelona, and they're going to win those games. Like, what Ten Hag is doing is insane. Like, I hope people really appreciate that this is a manager who has come in, looked at his side, he's done it completely free of reputations, he's done it with a complete cold, clinical eye. He's told everyone, be under no illusions. When you play for United, you need to be disciplined. You need to care. Those are the bare minimum things. If you don't do that, I'm not going to pick you, and there will be no way back for you. Understand? So I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been the closest thing I've seen to a Sir Alex Ferguson figure in the Prem since the great one, since the original. Just intelligent, tactically, inspirational, from a motivational perspective, unyielding in his values, in his beliefs. And United look like United again to me. So they're in the title race. They are. They absolutely are. Do not be surprised, because there is a timeline, by the way, where City and Arsenal drop off and United just steamroll and don't lose another game for the rest of the season. Believe that is a possibility. And maybe 25% is like some psychopath shit. I don't know. But 15, 20, you would have took those odds as a United fan start of the season. Of course you would. This was meant to be like Liverpool and City again, right? Or maybe Arsenal. No one really believed that. I was the only person talking about that. So, for United to be back in the mix, especially when, we were predicting if they keep playing Maguire and they keep playing Ronaldo, they're going to be mid-table at best, Now, 100% in the Champions League. They're back, So, yeah, incredible performance against Leicester. Loving Ten Hag. It's actually fun to watch United again. So, there you go. Those are my thoughts about, everything that's been going on in the Prem. We'll get this out as soon as we can. It'll probably be a little bit late, but we should all be caught up after that bumper edition very soon. So, as always, thanks for watching. Put your comments below. Share this around, and I'll see you next episode. Bye.